Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for coming back to join us for part 2 of Dave and Karen and their talk from warfighter to food poverty fighter. And we'll talk to you again after. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Phil. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, I'm David Jarvis, more commonly known as Jarvo, or in Africa, Davis Jarvis, and you'll get a bit more of an explanation about that in a while. So this is about a blissfully simple idea to help alleviate food poverty, but it starts with a journey from Lisbon to here, and with a chance meeting between Kay and me in Lisbon, a long time ago, both on vastly different paths. Now, she was a rogue accountant on the run from Interpol for embezzling funds from a corporation based in the Turks and Caicos. She wasn't really, but I don't understand what she does, and I try to make it interesting in my mind. I was a Royal Air Force Air Mobility Officer. I was in Lisbon on my way to Dartmouth, the African Union. And we got together, we figured we sort of liked each other a bit. So we ended up buying a house, or a palace, I should say, in Italy, transforming that to somewhere we could live, and gradually building it into a farm. And this was from having no experience of farming animals, anything. We just laughed at amusingly shaped vegetables. This guy, I'm not looking because it cracks me up, that one, I'm sorry. So we started off with crops and olive oil, and we got pretty good at that. And then we gradually moved into booze, because that's obviously quite important when you live on your own. So we made wine out of everything and anything. We could do red, white, rosé, green or brown. Some of them were great, some of them were not so great. We made a lot of beer as well. I spoke last week about the one we made from pumpkins called Stomach Pumpkin. That was terrible. I made a chili chocolate stout that made you feel like your lips had fallen off. It was great. So after the booze, we graduated into animals. We started with chickens, moved up to goats. Not really cost effective. Fun, not really cost effective. And then we got pigs. I love my pigs. Pigs are my favourite. So if you've got those, you have to learn to do butchery, making sausages, cured meats. We did all that ourselves as well, along with the breeding. And then we did our own food. Now, we ate so well, unbelievably well, to be honest. It was, we were making our own pizza, Kay made the cheese, we were drinking goat's milk. It was fabulous. So why did we leave that? I wonder that myself sometimes, not very often. But it wasn't a midlife crisis. If it was, she'd have bought me a new wheelbarrow, But I was getting worried about her. She started doing odd things like vacuuming outside in the summer wearing pink wellies. And she started to complain that she needed to go to a hair salon, and she wouldn't go out without a disguise. I offered to trim her hair again, but if you remember, I accidentally shaved her head once, so she wouldn't let me do that. And you've got to remember as well, she's a black belt. So you do have to be a little bit more careful. So she would come out with things. She would check the emails and she'd come racing downstairs, Jarvo, we've won the lottery. I'm like, oh God, that's life-changing. I can get a new bucket and everything. And then she'd go, April Fool. Now, how sick is that? And it wasn't even April. So we decided if we're going to leave, she'd like to be closer to her family in Halifax. Now, the problem was, she had a Dutch passport and she'd been bullied by the Dutch into giving up a Canadian passport. The only way we could get in was for me to go in as an international student, which, I wasn't exactly excited about that at my age. So I thought I'd choose something I really liked. Now, I'm a bit of a dab hand with flour, and so I like baking. So I thought, that's what I'm going to do. So we applied for a course, already had a study visa, and lo and behold, I got a place on a course. Now, NSCC, I thought they were a bit wordy here, to be honest. I think they could have been a bit briefer with that. So we sold all the animals, we got the house on the market. Kay set about eating away at the house because we had shelves and freezers full of food and a lot of booze. So she took one for the team and started to do that. So I thought, I know, I'll research Canada so I'm not caught in the dark when I go there. And I found this site was 20 interesting things about Canada, none of which were very interesting to me. But there was one that leapt out at me, that was Hudson Bay has the lowest gravity in the world. And I thought, that's interesting. If you remember last time, I mentioned that when I was in the army, I was seconded to NASA to measure gravity. Here's the link. This handsome chap in very dull clothing is working what's called a gravimeter. It's about the size of a car battery. It's not much to it. There's a viewpoint and a little screw where you wind down into a string. Very complicated piece of equipment. But it's so sensitive that it has to always travel in the same direction in a vehicle. When I did the course, I asked about what happens if you have to back up anywhere. He said, don't. Okay. It has its own seat on an aircraft. And we call it Mr. G gravimeter because of that. We were waiting to fly to the States. We were flying on a military aircraft. And the flight was delayed. I was getting really annoyed with this. So we asked, what's the problem? We went for a very important passenger. Okay. 5 minutes later, we hear this, will a Mr. G gravimeter please make himself known to the movement staff, please? So, you're going to ask, why were we measuring gravity? Well, at the time, the shuttle was taking off from Florida, and it was landing in Houston. And then they'd have to piggyback it across like this. Now this thing glides, it's 3 tons of metal. So it does wherever it does and it glides, so you have to know what's underneath. And this, we worked from the southern tip all the way up to North Carolina. It was done at sea, on rivers everywhere. Now I should point out, gravity is not that different really. You know, in Miami you're not dragging your feet like this, whereas in Fort Lauderdale they're doing this. It's not. But this job gave me the opportunity to do stuff that I'd seen on that recruiting poster in the recruitment office, and I've been suckered into joining the army. I got to do a bit of scuba. Fantastic. Me and my mate Andy, we entered the World Surfing Championships in Cocoa Beach. Didn't last long. We were sussed out when they realised we couldn't surf, and that we didn't even have a surfboard. But we got priority tickets to be on the base to watch the shuttle launch. At the time, we only had one of a little camera where you push the thing across, so that's why the picture's naff. My other friend, Jim, we had a long weekend, and he said, Jarvo, how do you fancy going to New Orleans? I thought, that sounds brilliant. I've heard of that place. So he said, great, I've bought a bike. And he'd bought this 1966 Harley. What I hadn't thought about was that it was 860 kilometres to New Orleans. I also hadn't noticed that it was a single-seat bike. So we were rather uncomfortably intimate for 860 k's there and back. And it also has a metal bar. That's where I sat on. Every time we stopped, I had to be levered off the bike. I still have the crater in my arse now from that. We also got the opportunity to go to Disney World. And Epcot, just that experimental prototype city of tomorrow, just opened. And we found an English pub in there, which had beer and not the pee we'd been drinking for 2 months. So we cleared all the kids and people out, occupied a corner, and set about attacking this. Now, just to go back, at the start of the pandemic, a friend of mine managed to track us all down. And every 2 weeks, we had a Zoom call. So and I thought, oh shit, they've not aged well. They're probably thinking exactly the same thing about me, but you know, this was a fit fighting force 35 years before. And we discussed the fact that we were subject to a lifetime ban from Epcot. And we realised we probably were, and I'll explain why. After a few hours, the management decided that we should be cleared out that pub. So who did they send to negotiate? An 8-foot-tall duck with no trousers. There was an altercation. Apparently you're not supposed to strike Disney characters. So we ended up being escorted to the door and told we were no longer welcome, which was a bit sad because I was quite enjoying myself there. Now, I'd been to Halifax before. It was one of our stop-off points when I was in the RAF. I was a mobile team leader. We used to fly 300 days a year. Quite often come this way, and you stop we're flying at the speed of lunch, so you have to stop somewhere on the east here. And it was Gander, St John's, and Halifax. So I used to get to hang around in my apartment. I understand it's not there now, but that's where we used to hang around. And I also came over in 2007 to meet Kate's family. Yeah. Now, there was a week where, well, there's a lot of family there, because she's got 2 sisters and a brother. But all the relatives would meet up, and somebody would cook a different meal every night. Like a brother did a barbecue, somebody did sushi, and Karen volunteered us for that. She doesn't cook. I'll cover that in horrific detail later. But she doesn't cook. So she said, you can do it. I said, okay, I'll do a traditional English meal. Any ideas what I went for? Any ideas? No, I did a chicken vindaloo curry. So, I was cooking this, and I said to Karen, look, I'm going to do poppadoms with dips. Will you be able to cope with the poppadoms? And she read the instructions. It was about 1 line. Yes, I can do that. Yeah, okay, right. It's simple. You just warm them up against this. Yeah, no problem. Now, big failure on my part, I didn't notice her sister arrive, and I didn't notice them go out to the deck with a bottle of wine. And by the time I'd realised, and it was time to do the poppadoms, and I found her, well, you know, it's like when you look in somebody's eyes and you know there's nothing back there. And I thought, oh, shit. So she's told me in a very unnecessary high and loud voice that she was perfectly capable of still doing those poppadoms. She wasn't. She didn't burn them, she cremated them. It was a disaster. I was trying to keep an eye on her, and I did the, you know, they've got the holes on the side of the thing, and then you've got the open side when you're doing something. So with the chili powder, it was inedible. Inedible, yeah. There was people complaining that their skin was falling off their faces. It was very upsetting. And here's the really poor part. For weeks before, I'd been planning on proposing to her. I'd been in Naples, I'd rehearsed it. A number of times it went really well. I looked at her and I thought, stuff it, I'm going for it. I'd asked her father's permission. I said, Clyde, I'm in love with your daughter, I'd like to ask her to marry me. And he said, oh, which one? I said, I really liked him. So I thought, stuff it, I'm going for it. Family all round, got her in the corner. Kate, I love you, will you marry me? No way. Kate, I love you, will you marry me? No way. By now, everybody's just shuffling uncomfortably and looking around. I thought, right, give it one more go. Kate, last chance. I love you, will you marry me? Yes. By this time, she was actually lower than me. So, and you'll note here, she has one of those little things you check the quality of diamonds. She was brought up well. So, you'll also notice she had me drugged and tied down and tattooed our wedding anniversary on my arm, so I wouldn't forget. I've also got a birthday tattooed on me. I can't show you that, I can only see it in the mirror anyway. So I arrived in Canada, St. John's, and I went to a windowless room with a woman who was patently Donald Trump's personality coach, and I was interrogated for 2 hours. Everything, finances. It was intrusive, uncomfortable, and horrible. And I pity anybody who has to go through that. But they thought I was coming here for the healthcare. In Italy, there's 1 doctor for every 170 people. In the UK, there's 1 doctor for every 330 people. In Nova Scotia, there's 1 doctor. So I went back to school, international student, really fun bunch actually, really good. But it's horrendously expensive when you're an international. And in my class, I found I had underwear older than most of my classmates. If people visited, they thought I was the teacher. It was really awkward, but I got to learn to make all this great stuff. We did gingerbread houses for IWK at Christmas. Absolutely loved it. All these cakes and stuff, and such a huge variety as well. You know, I was making grissini, which is an Italian breadstick. This is 4 cheese ham and garlic brioche. just melts in your mouth. Fantastic. I'm sorry if I dribble. Yeah. I get a bit excited about this stuff. Burger buns, cookies, no-bake individual lemon cheesecakes. It was fantastic. But there was a downside to it. I experienced a lot of racism. You know, everywhere I went to ask for something, I'd get the Dick Van Dyke, God blimey governor routine all the time, just mocking my accent. And as you can tell, I had no accent at all. It was really embarrassing. But you wouldn't do that to any other race. Ageism. I applied to, because I could work 20 hours a week as a student, I applied to Home Depot to collect the carts from the car park. Very nice letter, resume. They wrote back to me and said they didn't feel I had the requisite skills. I fought in Iraq, you know. What do you need? Oh, Sobeys, as a student, you can only buy food with a student discount on Tuesday. It's only day students are allowed fresh food. So I hated that place. And also I went to the 15-item only checkout, and there's a woman who had 18 items, I counted them. And I tutted loudly, and she just looked at me. In the UK, that would be akin to genocide. And the bank, Canadian banks, okay. When you're 55 and you're trying to tell them you're a student and an immigrant, they don't look on you that well. In my opinion, ISIS has got better customer service. And they've got more branches. And they're less militant. So anyway, got to this stage, and Kay realised I was having far too much fun, so she decided to put a stop to that. So she got a house sitter, in fact, and turned up just to ruin my life. So we went on a 10-day, because we'd been eating so well for so long, we just ate fast food. Luckily, it didn't show. So we got a house, we got an apartment actually, in Dartmouth, near Shoeby Park. And it was nice. We realised why it was cheap, because you can't get to anywhere from there. There's one bus every hour and they stop at 6, we were stranded. And it was an hour's walk to college, which, me not really understanding weather in the late summer and fall was gorgeous, birds singing, come winter, oh dear. I nearly died on that one a few times. I walked past 2 Tim Hortons. I'd never understood Tim Hortons. I went in there and the lady said, can I help you? I said, can I just have a look at the menu for a minute? She said, oh, blimey, of course you can, Governor. Thanks very much. And I would stand there, and people would come in and say, triple, triple. Double, double. No, don't know what that is. And every Tim Hortons has a group of seniors in each corner, plotting against the government. And when I came back in the evening, they were still there. Is this what you use as like a cheap daycare for seniors? Oh, and the coffee, okay. I tried the coffee once. Now, I've just come from Italy, where coffee is, well, it's a thing. They train baristas for a year. They take right pride in it. And I took a sip of this mud. When I was in Chad and I ran out of water once, I had to filter water from a river through a pair of socks into a cup. That's what it reminded me of. And that's true. So, yeah, I buckled down at college. I don't do things by half. So I was a campus leader. I was an international student ambassador. I graduated with honours and as valedictorian. So if you want to hear this, do YouTube David Jarvis valedictorian. It's 7 minutes long, and it's a mixture of, what should I say? Yeah, humour and inspirational. And it's renowned because I was the first person to do a valedictorian speech and use the word fart. Not once, but twice.
As a self-confessed grumpy old fart,
it reminded me, when I was at oil crews, working on the oil crews, a bit of a rough bunch. They're all this, that, and it's quite a rough place. Not a lot of manners going on here. And nobody said, pardon me, for instance. You just shut up and let them do it. And one guy said once, you know what, my wife farts louder than me. And he got a ripple of applause. It was very good. And he said, oh, no. But what's the problem? Well, she did it in an introductory dinner with my parents. I said, oh dear, that's awful. He said, no. And during our wedding vows. So, Kate, this time, she had some kind of bean counter job in Halifax as a temp. But she blagged this great job embezzling drug money for a cartel based in Cartagena, who put us in a safe house in Lunenburg. That's not true, really. I still don't understand what she does. So we moved to Lunenburg, and we found the one apartment that wasn't an Airbnb, and that we could afford without selling a kidney. And it had a nice big kitchen, which was great for me. I love a big kitchen, I'll do the cooking. She didn't care at all. I'll give you an example. If Kay says, I'll cook tonight, Jarvo, I always check emergencies open. We did a roast dinner once, and she said, I'll make the gravy. It was harder to carve than the roast. There's no shouts of denial, you'll notice, coming from over here. So we had this big kitchen, and I set up a gluten-free bakery. Mainly because when we went to her family, a lot of them have celiac and they can't eat stuff, and there'd be a separate plate of cardboard here for them. And then I said, why can't we make something everybody can eat and not notice it's gluten-free? So I blended my own flours, I developed my own recipes, I was able to make steak kidney pies, a sweet crust pastry, a savoury pastry, I even made puff pastry. And you can see the bread there, it looks like bread. Most unusual, apparently. But the problem was, when it came to renewing my work permit, Canada decided that wasn't a worthy enough business. And I had to stop doing it. I had to get a job. Not impressed with that at all. I actually lasted 3 months at that. I was quite proud of myself, But we decided that living in an apartment wasn't really doing it for us. I hadn't been in the country so long, so we started looking around for somewhere to live, and it was like Italy again. We're sweating on residency, so it's a bit of a risk, but it's cheaper than paying rent because they were putting that up. So we've shown places all over the place that were basically rotting wood with flooded basements, most of them. And then we found this place on Second Peninsula. Now it looks very dull. It's very plain from the outside, but inside it's like toasty and warm. And it felt nice. And same situation, he said, what can you do with it? So I did a lot of arm waving, this, that, and the other, a lot of space. Yeah, it'd be lovely to do that. But the biggest bonus for me was that it had 2 bathrooms. Now, this is because in my life, I've suffered a lot of trauma associated with toilets. In the military, you're sometimes side by side, back to back with people. It's not great. And well, I'll give you a clue. The title of my book is called The Curse of the Warm Toilet Seat. A warm toilet seat will kill me. Can't do it. So, I'll tell you a story about the whole crew in Africa. This fella here is Glaswegian. Totally incomprehensible. He's very big, so he didn't really question. And we called him Ballbag because of his uncanny resemblance to a scrotum. He was not a very pleasant guy. At the time, our toilet facilities, the riggers would drill a hole, they cut the bottom of our oil drum, over the top hole, plastic seat balanced on top. This was home, probably 1 million flies during the day, and a lot of carpet vipers during the night, and it heated up as well. So if you were there when it was hot, you had to keep your legs off the metal. It requires great core strength. Try it when you get home and you can have a body like that. Now, the company supplied this toilet tissue that used to be in public conveniences in England in the 70s. It's very shiny, very waxy. Not very pleasant, so we all had our own. Now, one day I forgot to bring my own before I got in on position, and none of the wax stuff there. You have to run the next guy in line. Just happened to be him. He stood here while I was like this, and he sensed my predicament. He's, And I said, tore a single sheet off. I said, can I have 2? Yeah. Okay. He wouldn't even give me a strip, just one at a time. That is why I get traumatised about these things. So what happened was we moved into an area to work that was between White and the Blue now. This had a lot of people milling around. So the oil drum started not to work for us. You know, I'd sometimes sit there with a crowd of 250, 300 people watching. Sometimes they'd applaud. It was horrible. So this man here, this is Jarvo. He was a mechanic from Toulouse. He could fix anything. So he built this toilet trailer, which would tow behind a Toyota. Fantastic. The seat didn't move. It had 2 ashtrays. It had a magazine rack, although most of those people couldn't read. And best of all, it had a lockable door, which I loved. It was privacy. And that was working fine until we had an Indian chap, who was another mechanic, who decided not to use the ashtray, and he popped the cigarette butt down this hole. It took us 2 hours to hose him down. It was a mess. So basically, toilet tour was finished now, you'll be glad to relax and about that. I prefer to have separate bathrooms, separate houses, towns, counties, provinces, countries, continents. For 2 months we achieved the continent thing. It was the happiest toilet time of my life. Sorry. So, the land around this house, superficially it looked not bad, but I soon realised when you scratch the surface, it's granite with a handful of soil thrown around every now and then. You have to go up. So I worked at a lumber mill and got paid in hemlock boards until I got these built. I built a little patch to do the potatoes in. Not great, you know, we're on a big learning curve here. And I had a very flimsy plastic greenhouse, white plastic greenhouse, that Hurricane Dorian relocated to Chester for me. In fact, it was shot down by NORAD over Martin's Brook. So it was a big lurch from Italy. We had a lot to learn. And it seemed to me like you had just got a 1-week window to pick 7 tomatoes sometime in September, which was it was a big shock for us. It was going to be a lot of work. Luckily, for one big reason, I need to keep myself busy. I have to keep involved, and I get really upset if I think I've let anybody down. And I mean seriously upset. I was diagnosed with multiple trauma, severe PTSD, which is part of the motivation for that. And it looks as though I'm smiling all the time. But I've been to some awfully bad places. I've seen things people shouldn't really see. I've been threatened with knives. I've been shot at, mortared. I've had missiles aimed in my direction. I was ambushed, captured, and held at gunpoint while a guy pressed a pistol to my head and counted down from 10. Excuse me. Right, I've survived on my own in bush, jungle, desert. But the thing that weighs on me the most is when I've had to put other people in a position where I've had to ask people to do things where I knew some of them wouldn't be coming back. That is a horrendous weight that never leaves you. So if I had too much time, things do not go great for me. I came back from Iraq on my own. I'd been RAF attached to an army unit. So they went home as a group, I went back on my own. They had somebody with a shared experience to help them decompress. I was expected to just go home as though nothing had happened. Just carry on with my life. You can't do it. I carried this weapon for 6 months. It was never out of my reach. It was over my back, on my chest. I carried it. I slept with the thing. I got home and it was taken away from me. The panic attack when you wake up or you get up and it's not there. A car door slams. You're faced with an open area to walk across. It's just horrendous. But I thought, this isn't going to get me down here. I'll get the lid on the box and I'll use this to my advantage. This is why I go so hard at stuff. I'm so scared of letting people down that I will flog myself to death to do it. And also find out that if I have the if I'm in somewhere where I have the opportunity to do something, then I'll do that. So we're going to take a break, let everybody calm down a bit, and I'll explain then about what I did all around the world to try and improve things for people. So please, grab some refreshments and I'll be back in 10 minutes. Oh, two things, yeah, we do have some prizes again, including a signed copy of The Curse of the Warm Toilet Seat, which I'm sure you'll be craving for. And you just have to remember a few names that I might have mentioned here. And also at the back on the left there's a photo album which shows me doing stuff in Africa. So you just want to have a flick through and enjoy that in most work. I'll see you in 10 minutes. I hope you all enjoyed your Tim Hortons coffee. I have some socks outside, I can prepare some for you later. Right, so I spoke before the break about how I use my PTSD to improve things for other people if I can. It's all about if you find yourself in the position where you can make a difference and you've got the will to do that, I like to do it. Now for me, I did 3 tours associated with the former Yugoslavia, Bosnia. And on one of those I was stationed in the north of Italy, in Vicenza, going over to what was left of Sarajevo to try and build a civil aviation program to get commercial airlines going in. And a friend of mine says, do you want to come visit this SOS children's home with me? I said, I'd love to. And we went there, and I loved that system. It was like a house mother looking after the house, the kids. They all seemed really happy. It was clean. It was great. I thought, this is lovely. But they didn't have anything. They had no toys. There was no interest for them. So when I got back to Vicenza, I got hold of this guy. It was Major Cliff Keenan, US Air Force. Lovely man. And I said, look, I've just been to this children's home. I want to raise money to buy them toys. Do you fancy riding to Venice and back? He said, how far's that? It's 150 kilometres? Yeah, no problem. So I went and bought a bike. And we went round and we raised about $2,000. We rode to Venice and back. I hadn't trained, didn't really think this through. There's a bit of a thread, isn't there? My knee was so swollen I couldn't change gear in the car. I drove 20 kilometres in first gear. But luckily you fit in quite well in northern Italy, nobody really noticed. So I went back to the BX and I bought stuff that involved hand steel, jigsaws, Lego, things like that. And then I went across to to Sarajevo, went to the children's, I played with the kids for hours. They had no fathers around. And it was lovely, and I really enjoyed that feeling. And it was great fun playing with the kids, although they kept getting in the way, it's my Lego, you back off. And they gave me this painting that one of the youngest ones had done. Now this is tinged with real sadness. This is where they live and where they play, and this is where they can't go. There's a lot of munitions and rubbish and things there. So I had that bit of sadness to it. I spent 6 months in Sierra Leone just as the war finished. It was a brutal war, absolutely horrible. People have been hiding in the bush for 10 years, and suddenly, war's over. Their idea of peace and reconciliation was just go back to where you were. This is after 10 years of war. I was the ops officer on a team right out on the border with Guinea, and we were next to a girls' school. And all the girls were just coming back. They'd been in the bush 10 years. They'd done some terrible things. So I would send the guys out and pray. We were looking for the bad guys. They were still out there. They were still wet and caches we were trying to find. We were trying to stop the blood diamond. There's a lot of mines there, a lot of diamonds being about. So every time I sent the boys out on patrol, I asked the headmistress there if she needed any help. She said, yeah, we haven't got an English teacher. I said, well, I'll do that then. So they gave me the syllabus. The night before, I'd learn how to teach. And then I'll do 2 lessons during the day, then debrief the boys when they came back from patrols, do all the security work. And I also managed to raise enough money to put 17 kids through their entire school careers, all the way up to 16. So we picked out the ones who were the most needy, the most vulnerable, and I paid their school fees, just made some money through the UK. And it was lovely, I really enjoyed it. But the bulk of my stuff was done in Kenya. I lived in Kenya for 3 years as the Royal Air Force liaison officer there. So I was responsible for all military aircraft, Indian Ocean, Africa. And I ended up with 32 projects there. If anybody's had a chance to look through the album, that tells you a lot about those projects. Now, the thing was, when you think about an NGO and you give $100, always in the back of my mind is that probably only 20 cents of that goes. Because they've got costs, they've got infrastructure, they've got to have a vehicle, house, they've got to pay salaries, staff. I already had all that. So in my spare time, I could just get involved with stuff. I have 3 buildings named after me in Kenya. I also volunteered with the Red Cross Action Team. I don't know if you can spot me in there. Yeah, I stood out a bit, which was a bit of a problem. They didn't have transport. This was not a big NGO. These guys worked and they were volunteers. And they'll call me and say, Mr. Davis, can you give us a lift? There's been a fire, children killed, we need to get close. And they would come pick me up, I'd pick them up, go there, and try and stay in the background because I stood out a bit. You know, I worked a lot in the slums. I spoke about the slums. And I worked a lot in the Thari slum. Sorry. Yeah. I'll just rewind. Yeah, this is the Thari. And Kibera, the big slum in Africa. And I set up projects to provide clean water. I got 12 guys to come over and build me a kitchen in the Thari that fed 1,000 people a day, which I funded myself. I had microfinancing schemes. There's a whole generation in the middle in Kenya, I found. They had kids and grandparents. This was right at the height of HIV/AIDS. Missing generation. They couldn't support themselves. So I set up microfinancing. I would rent 8 market stalls in Kibera slum, rail track, open sewer, but it was a good footfall through there. Paid the rent for 3 months on these 8 stalls. I went to Nakuru with my friend Joseph. I'll speak more about him in a minute. And we bought the stock. The stock is the stuff you give to charity shops all over the world. It gets bundled, it goes there, and it's sold on a market. So I paid for the stock, and every one of them paid me back within 3 months. Actually, one didn't, but most of them paid me back within 3 months. So they sold their stuff, paid their rent, bought more stock. It's just so wonderfully heartwarming that happens. Another friend was studying bat-eared foxes in Lasaba, the Samburu tribe area. And he said, they're desperate up there, Jarvo. They've got no clothes, nothing can help out. I got 3 volunteers, 3 vehicles. We filled them full of clothes, went up there and clothed people as much as we could. But we also had teddies. There was a charity called War Child. Anybody heard of War Child? They have a knitting pattern for a small teddy. So ladies all over the world would knit these things, all different colours, they're all different, and then they'd send them out to me. I'd get a big box, and it'd say, caution when opening. And I think, what? Slash the top, and it goes, boom! Teddies everywhere. They must have vacuumed it out from the bottom. Just to screw with me, really, I think. So, I also looked at investing in the community. This is the first time I thought about this, the community getting involved to become more self-sufficient. There was a school in Olapolis, this is the Maasai area, and the headmaster said to me, I was giving him exercise books and pencils, crayons, things like that. He said, World Vision were here talking about building a classroom, but they'll never come back. So I went to see World Vision, and I said, if you build one, I'll pay for another one, and we'll reduce the costs by the community doing most of the work. They dug out the footings. They filled for concrete. And this involved a 3-mile walk down to a river to pick up stone. And it's mostly the women do the work, obviously. We supplied all these children. This is one of my classrooms here. But I really love that idea of the community helping themselves and not just taking. And when you do that, they're so much more invested in it. And Africans are so invested in education. All they want is their kids to be educated and learn stuff, which I think is great. But my real passion, I think, is with special needs. Dagoretti Children's Centre. I was asked to go and look at this place, and I was appalled. There was kids just laying in their own filth. And these are special needs kids. They can't do anything. The parents abandon them because they can't look after them. And it broke my heart. I hated it. Now, they had one communal area. Yeah, there was the baby centre they had at the time. They had cots with 3 babies in, and they couldn't all lay down at the same time. And it stank, absolutely stank. This one communal area was their dining room, where they socialised and where they had their church services. And I could see that the roof was asbestos. There was dust coming off it. Oh, geez, I can't do this. I went to see the garrison engineer, the British Army barracks there. I said, can you help me out? He said, yeah, we've got a load of tin sheets here. We're not going to use them. We've got clear plastic. I said, fantastic, can I have them? Yeah. And his local labourers who worked for him said, can we come and help you, Davis? I said, sure. So we went there a weekend and we replaced that roof in a weekend. While we were there, this American guy turned up. And he said, who are you? I said, who are you? He said, I'm Larry Jones from Feed the Children. I own this place. I said, you should be very proud of yourself. Americans don't understand sarcasm that well. So I was a bit more forceful than that. You know? And we got into quite a frank discussion about this place, and which ended with me being on the board of directors. And I got rid of a lot of people. I got rid of all the corruption, the cronyism, the tribalism, all those things that ruin Africa. And we got the money put in the right places. Now, Larry had already started on working on a new abandoned baby centre. The ground had been broken. That was being sorted out, which was great. Now, this angel here is Grace. Now, Grace could only use one arm. Her mouth was permanently open. She dragged one leg. She loved unconditionally. She was a beautiful soul. I loved her to bits. And the teachers there told me that the school they're attached, she was not brain the size of a planet. She couldn't quite get in there. She just needs to get over that edge. So I built her a classroom for her and her friend Edwin, who's another. He's just cracked me up. He smiled all the time. Dribbled all over me, but he smiled all the time. Lovely bloke. And it's an awesome thing. You know, she not only got back into the mainstream school, but she went back with her parents. Oh, shit. Right, the abandoned baby centre, I spoke about that. I used to go to Dagoretti Hospital at weekends to read to children in palliative care. And I got introduced by the matron to Kenya Social Services, and they asked me to volunteer for them. I said, sure. So every time they had an abandoned baby, and it wasn't that often because they were quite good at finding parents. They were very good people. They would call me and say, Davis, have you got a space for this baby? I'd say, yeah, no problem at all. So this one time I called the abandoned baby centre, so I'm bringing one down at 3 o'clock. And they said, okay, that's brilliant, we'll get something ready. I had a phone call, and it was Larry Jones. He said, I hear you're picking up a baby. I said, yeah. He said, what time? 3:30. He said, I'll meet you there. I get to Kenyatta Hospital and Larry Jones is there. And he's got Jermaine Jackson with him. And I didn't know it was Jermaine Jackson, it was just some shiny bloke. And he didn't know who I was either. Shameful. But Larry wanted us to film this piece where I would hand this baby to Jermaine Jackson and he would take it to the baby centre. I said, yeah, I'll do that. So me and Joseph went down there. Sure enough, he set it up and I'm holding this baby. And he says, so Dave, what do we have here? That's as close as I can get to it. So. And I said, it's a baby that was abandoned in a pit latrine. And he says, oh. I said, will you take it to the abandoned baby centre for me, Jermaine? Sure, Dave. And just as I did that, it shat itself in the most violent manner you can imagine. And I watched his face crumple. But he took it. And then, cut, he gave it straight back. So I went and matron, because I had to adopt all the kids. So I adopted the baby. And I said to Joseph, Joseph, my assistant, this guy was wonderful. He's a Kikuyu little short guy, always wear a suit. Loveliest man you'll ever met. He just looked after me. If I yawned, he'd put a cup of coffee in front of me. It was like that. It was just brilliant. And he loved going to all these projects because he got to be like a father figure to all these kids. He just loved it. So, I'll tell you a story about Joseph. We were at the house, and I was putting up pictures. This is with, she's K, so she's number 11. This was with E. Yeah, I had alphabetical all my wives. That's in case you're wondering. So I was putting this picture up, and I said, where do you want this picture? She said, higher. I said, where do you want this picture? And I was bending these nails, and it was a poor concrete wall. So she said, yeah, you need to do something better than that. So I got Joseph. I said, Joseph, I need some masonry nails. How many do you want? She said, 20. Okay. I need 20 1-inch masonry nails. He goes, yes, sir, no problem. He was gone for hours, and he comes back, and he looked really upset. And I thought, oh no. I said, what's up, Joseph? He said, I couldn't find a 21-inch masonry nail. So the crews would bring him stuff. They'd, any aircrew that came through, they loved Joseph. They always used to bring him loud ties. Yeah, ties so loud they set off car alarms. They were beautiful. And one day they brought him this radio, wind-up radio. It was just quite early on for these things, a little light. And he loved this thing, absolutely worshipped it. And then he comes to work one day and he's looking all distraught again. I thought, oh dear, what's wrong now? I said, what's up, Joseph? He said, I lost my radio. What happened? Oh, my house was robbed. They took everything. So, did you call the police? He said, it was the police. Now, because of my little film incident with Jermaine Jackson, somebody saw that in the States, and I kept this all really secret. None of my hierarchy knew about what I was doing there. Somebody saw this piece and called my boss and said, I've just seen film of a Royal Air Force officer handing a child to a member of the Jackson family. There was alarm bells going off everywhere. I said, oh shit. So he called me, he said, book me a room, I'm on my way. Crap. He turned up, he went round all my projects with me. It was obviously very dusty because he was quite moist-eyed all the time. And we finished up at Dagoretti, and as we pulled up, I spotted Grace right down the far end, and she saw me, and she was, oh no, gosh, she's on her way. And she came as fast as she could, not very fast, and I'm yelling out, slow down, Grace, sweetheart, she's still coming. And she got about 5 yards away, and I said, this is Bwanakuba, a big boss. And she diverted across, and I looked onto him like that. And, excuse me. She gave him a hug that I hope every one of you has the chance to experience once in your life. And then she came and hooked on me, snobbled and snobbled over me, and oh, I just love that girl a bit. Now, the boss, as a result of this, recommended me for the Order of the British Empire, which I was awarded, and I went to the palace and met the big boss. God bless her soul. And she pinned it on me there. So, the pandemic gave us a chance to really step up our game here. You know, we'd been in the UK in January 2020, and we ended up in Toronto. Our flight got messed up, and we were watching the TV whilst enjoying a continental breakfast. And it looked like the apocalypse was happening. China was shutting down. Our home in Italy was just shutting down. I said to Karen, I've seen this before. I used to work with the US Department of Transport. I'd go to the Volpe Centre in Boston very regularly. And they showed me a simulation once. It was their one had a guy eating an undercooked squirrel in Abu Dhabi, and where he went and the spread from everybody on the aircraft, and how the CDC would shut the place down. But the one thing that struck in me was that they said the logistic chain would just die. There'd be no food, there'd be food riots. You know, they didn't anticipate toilet paper riots, obviously, but they were thinking more about the food riots. And this struck home, and I said, we've got to do something. But we already led a solitary lifestyle. You know, I'm a miserable old sod at the best of times, but, you know, we didn't, thank you. You know, we didn't have any visitors. I think only one person knows we have a doorbell and rings it. And, we had a doorbell in Italy. I've got to tell you this. We had a doorbell in Italy, but we'd forgotten about it because Where the door was, I bricked it up, put that big fireplace so we could eat pizza. So we'd completely forgotten about it. And then one day, we were sitting threading chilies, and we could hear this buzzing noise. What's that? I don't know. It's in the house. And we're looking around, what the hell is going on? And then somebody said, do you never answer your bell? Oh, come in. Now, Massimo Chili, our builder, had been really cheap, and he'd used the same bell that was on the thing in the bathroom upstairs, you know, the cord with the little red thing, so if you fall over, you pull on this, and people go, oh, he's fallen over in the bath, and they come and help you. So I realised that if that happened to me and I pulled on that cord, she'd be outside going, hello, who's there? I tell you what, it didn't change our routine too much. I really enjoyed being 2 metres from everybody. I even tried it at home. Epic fail. Not happy. I like arrows on the floor. I like not too many people. Queuing, I'm English, we invented it, you know? I was perfectly comfortable with that. Now, just before it hit, we put this greenhouse up. And as you can see, it was not too bad. I did it on my own, that one. But now we had the chance to use that, all those transferable skills, all the growing, all the stuff I knew, to get more food. So Kay had an office at home, so there's no distraction, so I got on with it. I collected doors and windows from the side of the road, put those in, built beds inside. Now, to be honest, this is double height, I've got one down the middle, I'm increasing this all the time as I go on. I did water from every drain pipe. Now I use a submersible pump and pump it up to the top into these tanks. And I've got 3 1,000 litre tanks. So I'm watering with rainwater, not treated water. I built a little greenhouse for hardening stuff up earlier, which means I can get ahead of the game. I can get a month ahead. And I built this from an old Shelter Logic garage frame and the leftover plastic from the other greenhouse. If anybody has one of these frames lying around you want rid of, just let me know. I could always use more growing space. And this has solar power. Now, I'd used solar power a long time ago when I was on the cruise in Africa. Because I had a sat-nav that was this big, Magnavox 1502, huge antenna. It took an hour to put up. You know, nowadays you just go like that. But that was what I had. And my job was forward recce in the desert. So the boss in cartoon would give me this map. He called it a map. It was actually a square that was painted yellow. There wasn't anything on it. And he'd draw a cross on there, and he'd say, Jarvo, get us to the middle of that cross, and I want a nice safe route for all the trucks, and you've got 2 weeks. So I had a Toyota with a long-range fuel tank and a water tank on the back. I'll drive out of Khartoum towards Accra, get approximately where I thought I had to get across, zero the speeder, pick something out on the horizon on a bearing, and just drive, trying to avoid getting stuck. So I'd just be gone for 2 weeks like that. And then I'd have to find my way back on ground hard enough for 50-ton Kenworths with trailers to follow. You can see this route here, it's already doing this. So I would wrap bits of tape around bushes and rocks. Oh, by the way, this picture here, just after this was taken, the fashion police arrived and made me cover my legs and banned me from wearing short shorts again. And I did have a few mishaps doing this job. I dropped a grader in the Blue Nile once. Totally accidentally, obviously, I wouldn't do it deliberately, but we had the line, one of these lines went across the Nile, and I had to go all the way down to a dam at Senna and go across and up the other side. And I saw this little ferry, and I thought, oh, that might work. We drove down there, I said to the captain, I knew he was the captain, he's had a pointy at him. He said, yeah, I could get the grader on, it'll work. So okay, we back the grader on. A grader is a long thing with a centre blade that smooths out the surface of the road. So it's got a centre-mounted plough. We backed the grader on. He tried to put the ramp up at the front and it wouldn't quite go. So the driver put the blade down and it lifted the front wheels up. Up came the ramp. Beautiful. He unhooked the steel cable, tried to go backwards. It was stuck on the bank, wouldn't move. He says, no. I'm not ruining the landing place, you'll have to come off. Yeah, fair enough, we tried. So he put the steel cable anchor on, put the ramp down, and as he put the front wheels on the deck, he revved it a bit, and it propelled this ferry backwards. The steel cable went ping, everybody's laying flat on the floor. Ferry disappears out in the middle of the river. grader drives off the front, driver swims for shore, cauldron of bubbles and farting noises, no sign of the grader. I was like, oh shit. I went back to the crew, told the boss, yeah, in this company I cannot use the words he described me, but we got a truck with a winch on it and went back, and we couldn't find it. I had to go to the dam at Senna, get a diver who was about 80 years old to come and dive for it and put a cable on. I had to pay 20 kids to throw rocks at crocodiles so they didn't eat him. And then we actually got it back. I was not popular for that one, surprisingly. This is me fording the River Sharry in Chad. We had to wait for the river level to get down low enough to go across. And all the boys would be sat on the back. You'd see like this guy, there'd be a row of them on the back. And there's little sandbars all the way across the river. And they would tap on the roof, and I would steer that way. And then tap, 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 steer this way. Because you can't see what's going on. And all of a sudden they were going, tap, 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 tap. And I was like this, boom! And then tap, 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 back this way. Come out the other side, what the hell's going on? Open the door, the water flies out the door. What the hell's going on? And they had this fish, like this, on the back of the Toyota. Captain Ombre, massive fish. And I said, oh, it tasted great though. Oh, they made a really good job of that, it was lovely. But my boss made me fill out an accident report with direction of vehicle, direction of fish for the insurance. So that was a great, right, so we started producing food in that greenhouse. Basically because I had the means, willingness, and the infrastructure to do that. And family didn't want it. But we thought, what a great opportunity to help out here. And I spoke to my friend Linda and said, can we grow food for the food bank? Yeah, that's a pretty good idea. And it's all about, it's bang for buck. You've got to make sure you get the most out of it. In the army, we had an expression, 7 Ps. It was prior planning and preparation prevents piss poor performance. So you make sure you're ahead of the game. You know what you're doing. It's about working clever, not harder. You know, I'm at an age now where things creak a lot. Sorry, do you acknowledge that? Did I creak a lot? You know, if I set an alarm, whatever time I set an alarm for, my bladder will kick me awake an hour before that anyway, just out of spite. You know, do you know how you can tell if you're old? If you trip and fall over, smack your face on the ground, everybody laughs, you're still young. If you trip and smack your face on the floor, they go, somebody call 911, who's the first responder? Don't move, sir. That's when you're old. So, what I do is I make sure I keep, we wanted to make sure the house was nice, didn't we? So I did that first. I learned carpentry, and I sorted all this stuff out, got the house going. And then you start thinking about how you're going to do stuff, what you're planning, your preparation, how you're going to prepare. And I have this spreadsheet where I constantly know what works for me, what doesn't work. This has got thousands of lines, and it changes every year. And every year, I try and sneak it all forward that little bit more. And the way I do that is by starting as early as I can indoors with lights. I put these up last weekend, and I'm going to be planting this weekend. So I've got an array of dodgy lights here. And you remember that small greenhouse I spoke about, built for hardening up? I've got a little plastic greenhouse in there. So when I want to harden stuff up as early as possible, I'll put them inside the plastic greenhouse, inside the greenhouse. So it means I can get 2 or 3 weeks ahead. It's all about being clever with this stuff. And I'd always do more than I need. And I would say 90% of them survive, even with that. Did you know that 62% of all statistics are made up? Including that one. My favourite statistic is that after 5 years of marriage, 40% of men don't kiss their wives goodbye in the morning. As a result, after 10 years of marriage, 80% of men kiss their houses goodbye. But you know what? It seems to be working. We can grow an awful lot of stuff. Yeah, so you see, it's a little bit busy. You know, the bulk of this, what we grow, goes to the food bank. We take what we need. I don't take much lettuce. I'm a salad dodger of Olympic standards. I didn't get a body like this eating kale, I tell you. And we do big numbers. But we still do the same thing we did do in Italy. In Italy, remember, we ate, stored, swapped or sold. The only difference here is we eat, store, donate. And that starts with the tomato sauce we used to do. See, anything I don't consider good enough to go to the food bank, I make a passata or a sauce out of. Oh, this I've got to tell you about this super Cuba thing. To make portions of sauce. You remember what we used to do in Italy? Yeah, we had that blanching, the chopping, the sterilising, the cooking. Oh, what a noise that was. No, this thing's brilliant. Just put it in the freezer and then pop it out, put it in a Ziploc. I absolutely love it. At the top there, I make a slow roasted tomato and vegetable soup. I roast it for ages, mash it down, whiz it. And then the liquid, I used to make this tomato bread. Now, this is me, when you toast tomato bread, the smell, it's like an angel's fart. It's just breathtaking, wonderful. You know, garlic, we store it in our gazebo outside, so you can be sitting outside having a meal and a drink and bits of root dirt be falling on your head for a few weeks, but it's worth it. Because we cure it, and then I keep what I need to plant the next year. I give big lots to the food bank, and anything that's a bit dodgy coming apart a little bit, we chop it up, we whiz it with a bit of olive oil, small ice cream scoop on a bit of parchment, freeze it in a Ziploc bag, and then whenever I need a olive oil and garlic starter, I just whip one of these out of the bag, put it in the pan, done. And we grow lots of chilies. Now the food bank clients quite like a variety of chilies, so I grow from very mild to very hot. I always give them lots of chilies. But what we do with it, we make a lava sauce, a hot sauce. I cure them and dry them to make chili oil and chili powder. We also cure onions and squash for us. I've still got onions and squash in the basement, we're still using. But I grew 400 onions for the food bank last year. So that's from bunching onions, spring onions, shallots to these big talons and superstars. And I'm going to try and double that this year, if I can, get the space in. And then we also like to give herbs. Now, I've put out an appeal on WeShare about the plastic things you buy herbs from the supermarket, because I want to be able to reuse those and keep giving fresh herbs. We dry an awful lot of herbs for us for the winter. But what it does, it's taught us to be more inventive here with how we store our food and what we cook. If I have too much zucchini, for instance, and it's not a food bank week, I make this egg roll. So I slice it, bake it with eggs. Whatever we got as leftovers, I put in the middle, roll it up, bake it, slice it in two, and that's a really nice filling meal. And you can do the same thing with eggplant, but you just grill it this time, and then fill it up. And this is lovely, lovely, that irony flavour you get from eggplant, love it. And I also buy ground meat in the summer when it's on offer. So when I have that glut of potatoes, carrots, beans and peas, I make shepherd's pie, because I love shepherd's pie in the winter. I also get the puff pastry. One sheet of puff pastry, I can make 4 leek and potato pies. Love that. Carrots we dug up on Christmas Eve. We had some of our Christmas dinner, and then anything that's left, big ice cream scoop, I'll freeze them, we put them in a Ziploc bag, and it's 1 each. So we always have veg through the winter. We make sure we're covered. Our grocery bill averages $32 a week, because we get ahead and prep and do this stuff. And we also save money on the seeds. So I keep all our seeds. I'm still growing stuff with seeds I brought from Italy. Fiorentina, proper Roma tomatoes, we either ferment them or we dry them. And once you've got all this sort, you've got your self sort, you've got your seed sort, you can start to donate properly. This is the first year, so it's quite a small donation, but we were learning and growing. And Linda would come over the first time, I think it was with a small silver bowl, and then it gradually worked its way up. And the next year, we're a bit more serious. This is an average donation here from the garden. And this gave me an idea. And I spoke about that blissfully simple idea. Everybody always has surplus of something at some stage if you grow in your garden. You might have extra cucumbers, which are great, full of vitamins, zucchini, lettuce, it's going to go to seed if you leave it too long. Well, I can take that. So I set up the We Feed Lunenburg, which is a group on Facebook where I'll tell you when the food bank is, You tell me you've got food, I'll come and get it. Or you can deliver it there, you can bring it to me. And it's all about not being committed, not having the pressure to do anything. It's what may go to waste. You know, I can make use of that. This year, we're going to have a collection point on a Sunday in Lunenburg. And when you go to the NSLCs or Tim's on a Sunday, you just drop it off with me and I'll make sure it gets there. But, you know, it's not just the summer. We feed works in the winter as well. The food bank here will accept home-baked goods. So it's baked goods as well. Last week on a Monday, I baked 32 loaves of bread for the food bank in about 6.5 hours. And it's my own recipe. I've worked this so that I can cook 4 at a time. And I've got, if you look, there's no surface space in this kitchen. It's tiny. It's a normal oven. But I've got that system working. My mixer can't cope with that amount. I can only do a first mix with the mixer to get it together, and then I have to go old school. You know, I have to knead it. So basically I'm turning it inside out, stretching all the gluten, getting it all ready. It's a beautiful board, isn't it? My friend Martin made that for me. So then I'll put it somewhere nice and cover it, let it double, and then you slap all the air out of it. Now, as I said, it makes 4 loaves at a time. These are 600 gram loaves. Beautiful fresh bread. It's just flour, sugar, salt, eggs, vegetable oil, and flour, yeast. So it's a simple, but it's an artisan bread. And I bake it fresh, and it's gorgeous. So I shape it all out, and I put it in greased tins. I used to do freeform round loaves, but I wanted more consistency and better size for the food bank. So that's what I do. I roll it all up like that, pinch the seam shut, give it a quick roll, and then it goes in the oven. So I have a continual process going round. There's stuff in the mixer, there's stuff proofing to be doubled, there's stuff on the top of the oven just waiting to go in the oven. Now, this is the bread coming out. I always make sure it's 195 internal, so it's properly done. Can you smell that? Yeah. That's gorgeous, isn't it? 32 loaves of that. That takes me 6.5 hours, 7 hours, something like that, yeah. So once that's down and cooling, I'm going to slash this one that's doubled in the tin. And I've got the signature 4 slash, you know. That's what I like to do. And then they go straight in the oven. And it works. But it's not just that. We bake the 32 loaves of bread. Kay and I bake 48 muffins on a Sunday, 2 different types, so there's a bit of variety, and 60 cookies. And we'll bag them, 4 cookies in a bag, 2 muffins in a bag, and a bag for a loaf. So the clients can take what they need, or what they're allowed to take, probably. But it works really nicely. And this is just a big leap towards that self-sufficient community I'm trying to create. That everybody gives their spare bread or bakes 2 loaves of bread, you know. So, what is really great, actually, I'll come to the soup in a roll in a minute. At Christmas, you have to step up the game. This is what Karen and I bake for Christmas. And we do a good variety. I'm at this for about 10 days. So we do stuff like peppernootjes, which are a Dutch cookie, a bit like a ginger snap. So I'll make the dough every day, put it in the fridge. The next day she finishes work, we hand roll all of these. We make thousands of them. But they're lovely, they're light, and I think they're popular as well. Oh, this is interesting. We bought these in Mum and Pop's store. They're Dutch cookie molds, but they're the ones that they have on display in the back of Dutch bakeries. They're about this tall. And we knew what they were, so look at those. That's brilliant. We bought them, and the lady says, I don't know what they are. I said, we do. They're Dutch cookie molds. She said, how do you know that? I said, she's Dutch and I'm a baker. So we do all these cookies. Oh, somebody asked me where I got the cutter for the rainbow's heads. It's an upside down gingerbread man. Yeah. So I did 50 rolls of cinnamon raisin bread in a day. And then I've got the rolls here because something fantastic is happening next week. The food bank on Tuesday will be doing hot drinks, soup and a roll for the clients, which I think is fantastic. And they've asked We Feed Group to make the bread rolls. So I'll do my amount, and anybody else who wants to chip in, if you want to put them in the freezer for later, they've got freezer space at the food bank. No pressure if you can do it. If you've got a great recipe, send it to me. I love recipes. So, this year, we asked We Feed Lunenburg if they could help us pack the boxes, because it's quite a bit of work. Now, the food bank will tell me we've got this many single people, clients, this many couples, this many families, a big family. So me and Karen baked to that proportions. And then these lovely people turned up and helped us pack 42 boxes with a few bits of spare as well. You see, this is them in the garage. Now, it suddenly occurred to me I had another transferable skill here. You know, it's not that hard to bake bread. So I worked a recipe with 2 loaves, and then I created a YouTube channel, We Feed Lunenburg, and you get to look at my mug breaking bread here, all the way from what equipment you need, the ingredients, how to make it, and I'm also adding other stuff about how to make chili oil and things like that as I go along, just to make it interesting. Now, going back to Africa, I've always found a subsistence existence quite comforting, because I've seen it so much. And what I mean by that is that the young girls fetch water, the young boys look after the livestock, the women do all the work. They do all the cooking, the cleaning, the planting, the harvesting. Yeah, I can't figure out what the men. I think the men provide security, but not much else. But the problem with the subsistence existence is that it could go horribly wrong very quickly. Drought, flood, earthquake. Remember this? This was June the 30th in Italy. We had a hailstorm, took all the blossom off our trees, destroyed our crops, flooded our animal areas. But you know, we could adapt to that. But consider this. First world problems. This is happening. It affects everybody. I saw in the news this morning, 1/3 of Canadians would not be able to cope with a sudden $500 expense. I was horrified by that. So you've got to remember that bloke you see walking his dog, you nod at, the lady struggling with a couple of kids crossing the road, the guy trying to get enough change to buy a packet of cigarettes at Irving. Not your issue, but you have to think that at any time, anybody could struggle and need the food bank. So as a community, if we're able to help, fantastic. Now, I spoke about NGOs, and I said, it's always bothered me about what percentages go, and I understand that you have to build your infrastructure. But I guarantee you, if you give me 1 onion, a couple of lettuce, a tomato, 100% of that will go to the food bank. It'll go to where it's needed. And that's important. I can't bear to think of anyone suffering unnecessarily. I've seen it too much. I just cannot stand it. And I'm compelled to help. But I'm also enormously aware that you can't save the world on your own. You need to build a self-sufficient community to do it. You need to find the people who've got the means and the willingness to do it. And the best way I can do that is to make it as easy as possible. So there's no commitment, as I said. If you have something spare, that's fantastic, I'll take it. We'll get it to the food bank, they need it. Let's say you have a tiny patch of dirt. You can spend $5 on seeds, sprinkle lettuce seeds around, nice and wet. You've got salad for yourself. If you happen to have something spare, fantastic. $5 worth of seed will give you $100 worth of produce for the food bank. Now, one thing I'll do, I spoke about the collection point. This year I'll be growing more seedlings. I'll give some to the clients, which I do every year, but I will also give plants to those who think they can grow their own food and give their spare to the food bank. But also for those people who don't really think they need the food bank and just want to supplement their diet. And that's that blissfully simple idea. Just coming together as a community to help people. And that's it. Well, thank you very much indeed for your attention. Thank you. Got the prize. So, right, I spoke about the prizes, okay. And, right, we've got 2 ones and then the big one, which is the signed copy of The Curse of the Wall Toilet Seat. I can see your excitement. So first of all, who was the Glaswegian with the toilet paper? Uncanny resemblance to a scrotum. No, Jock's a nice try.
Yes. What is it? That can happen. So give it to somebody else.
What was the name of my special girl at Dagoretti? Yeah. And the big prize, which I hope you were paying attention. The French mechanic from Toulouse, very smug face.
Double name.
Jean. No. No.
Close.
Close. No. That was maybe too difficult. They're all trying to avoid the book. I can see your plan. It's not working. We will make one of you take it.
Try another question.
Okay. Try another question. Where should we go?
Where did you do most of your work?
Yeah, where was I did most of my work? Kenya, yeah. Thank you very much indeed. Yeah, sorry. I've got questions up there, and then I didn't ask if anybody had any questions. Anybody got any questions? It's on Amazon. David J. Jarvis on Amazon.ca, and you see all mine have got black covers, and they are not serious in any means. Are there any questions? Oh, sorry.
Is it through your Facebook group that you communicate with your...
Yes, I now have Facebook, We Feed Lunenburg. I'm modelling here. I also have an Instagram. I've just started an Instagram, We Feed Lunenburg. And I'm going to go through what I do every day on my planting. I took a picture of the lights last weekend. I'm doing seeds this weekend. So if you follow me or We Feed on Instagram, you'll see the whole planting process. And we're actually planning on having open days up at the ranch this year. So anybody who wants to come down and see what we're doing, what we're growing, you can. Yeah. Yes?
How many freezers do you have?
3.
Just 3?
Yeah. And they're straining at the leases. But I have one big one, which we stack really well. We have a square one, but I try to keep that free because I'm always doing stuff with the fruit bank. I need that one free. And we've got a big one under our fridge. But we also do a lot of dry storage. So that's how we use the space.
What do you need?
Whatever you've got to spare.
In terms of equipment, or how would we know what you need?
In terms of equipment, I've got everything I need. I have. The food bank are going to hopefully help me out with potting soil if I'm going to do 400 seedlings, which will be really good if we can have. But no, I have all the infrastructure I need. I've built all that. So I'm just free now to grow what I can and bake what I can.
Pots or freezers or fridges or...
Pots.
Pots.
Yes. Now, I need to speak with Anna. We're working on this at the moment about the food bank clients. Generally, they've not got a big, they don't have kitchens like most of us, and maybe just cooking on a single ring, may not have an oven. So, and stuff tends to wear out quickly if you do that. Now we've got a couple of pots in the back of our cupboard that are good quality that I don't use. And if somebody else has that sort of stuff, then we'll collect it and see if the food bank clients need it. And they'll take it if they need it. Good question. Anything else? Oh.
David, would you sell your produce and use that money to put into the food
No, I would
bank?
not, no. And I don't ask for donations. The only donations I ask for are produce and baked goods.
And same with the seedlings, you don't want to sell them, you prefer to just donate them?
I sold some one year, and I found it very unsatisfying.
Oh, okay.
This is entirely on trust. People collected last year from us. We gave a lot away, didn't we, for people who could grow for the food bank. And it's all on trust. I don't know if you're just taking a free transplant from me. I have to trust you. If you can get spare, I'll take it.
Yeah, I was thinking more that if you don't have the land to grow, at least you're able to support by buying it or doing doing something that way, but you would prefer that we grow or donate or do.
Absolutely, yeah. So they get best produce, nice fresh produce, community.
So if you're interested in a transplant, I'll just ask if you donate one to me to the food bank. Yeah, that's all we ask.
I'm running up.
Do you ever use any extra manpower since it was just you?
Yeah, it's just us. Apart from the volunteers at Christmas, which was fantastic. We had a lovely afternoon, didn't we?
And Linda does a tremendous amount of work every other week in the summer, collecting the produce and cleaning it and cutting down our lettuce, and so she spends hours.
Yeah, Monday afternoon. Yeah.
Every other Monday.
So do we need more manpower or no? Or do we just talk to you?
We could probably use another body on that Monday afternoon.
Yeah, but it's also the Monday. It's all about me doing what I love to do, and yeah, it's therapeutic for me, very much so. And Linda showed us how to cut the lettuce so it comes back again, which was like a wonder for us, wasn't it? We just stare at it. It's coming again. Yeah, I love that stuff. Right, I will sit down now. Thank you again for your time. Sorry. Thank you.
Okay, just a few moments before you go, I just want to really, really thank Dave and Karen for doing this. You can see that he doesn't do it to talk about these things to aggrandize himself or their projects. They are really concerned about food insecurity in the Lunenburg area, and he just has an idea for how we can all help. I also wanted to give some thanks to Alan and Harvey, our tech team, and David Friendly, who has been videographing this, and it will be available to Scans a little bit later. And finally, I just want to tell you a little bit about Scans, which has sponsored this talk. We have courses in all kinds of subjects running 3 times a year, fall, winter, and spring. Science, visual arts, theater, history. If you're interested at all, pick up one of those orange slips. They were on your chairs last week. And if you're interested, contact me or contact Scans. Thank you very, very much for coming. We'll see you in the spring. We're going to have another one.